All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive with us.
I am excited about this one.
Yeah, this one is going to be wild. We're going back to 1939.
1939.
And we're talking Nazis, we're talking Madison Square Garden, and we're talking about
I love it already.
one incredibly gutsy guy.
Yeah.
So if you like history, if you like
I am ready for this.
just crazy stories from the past,
I know.
then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel.
Definitely.
Because this story is one for the history books.
Okay, I'm so ready.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1939, Madison Square Garden is absolutely jam-packed.
Yeah.
22,000 people are cheering. And guess what?
Why
They're all there to support the American Nazi movement.
Oh, my goodness.
We are talking swastikas next to a giant portrait of George Washington.
Wow.
It's a scene you wouldn't believe. And at the podium, you've got Fritz Kuhn,
okay,
leader of this whole shebang, ranting about Americanism while spewing some of the most hateful anti-Semitic garbage you can imagine.
It's wild to think about how he tried to use American values to push his own agenda. He was using the Founding Fathers,
It's unbelievable.
while at the same time calling for the exclusion and the persecution of Jewish people.
It's unbelievable, the audacity.
Yeah.
Right? But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
In this sea of hate, in this den of absolute insanity, there is a 26-year-old Jewish plumber's helper from Brooklyn named Isadore Greenbaum.
Isadore Greenbaum.
And Isadore, well, he decided he wasn't going to just sit there and take it.
This is where it gets good. He wasn't some activist or public figure or anything. He was just a regular guy.
Just a regular guy.
Who decided he couldn't stomach the hate that was being thrown around.
So while Kuhn is up there ranting and raving, Greenbaum pushes his way through this massive crowd, makes a beeline for the stage, and starts shouting, "Down with Hitler!" at the top of his lungs.
Oh, my God.
I mean, can you imagine the guts it took to do something like that?
Yeah. It's amazing to think about. He was completely outnumbered and surrounded by people who were, to put it mildly, not on his side.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And, of course, chaos erupts. The sources we have describe Nazi stormtroopers just swarming Greenbaum, beating him mercilessly while the crowd is going wild. It's truly a horrific image.
It's a reminder of the violence that was always just right there under the surface of the Nazi ideology. They didn't just talk about hate.
Right.
They were ready to use force to make it happen.
And get this, after the whole ordeal, Greenbaum gets arrested for disorderly conduct.
You're kidding.
The irony is just unbelievable.
Wow.
The people promoting hate are protected, while the guy who stands up against it ends up getting punished.
It makes you think about how complicated things were back then and how law enforcement was trying to figure out where to draw the line between free speech and actually causing violence.
It's tough.
Yeah.
And you know what adds insult to injury? Some of the police officers who arrested Greenbaum actually contributed to a collection to help pay his fine.
Really?
It's insane.
Like, some of them knew what he did was right.
Right.
Even if they couldn't say so officially.
It's wild.
That is wild.
This mix of courage and absurdity and historical context, and we're just getting started.
I can't wait to hear more.
Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this deep dive.
I'm ready.
All right.
Welcome back to this deep dive.
It's crazy how this story about Greenbaum from over 80 years ago still feels so relevant today.
I know. It's like it's echoing through time.
Yeah.
You know, this fight against hate, it's not over.
Not at all.
And it makes you think about what we would do in those situations.
Exactly. And with that in mind, we can't ignore the upcoming Trump rally at Madison Square Garden.
Oh, wow.
The very same place where Greenbaum stood up to those Nazis.
Wow.
It feels like we're looking at some kind of weird, distorted mirror.
Yeah.
This article we have draws a direct parallel between how Kuhn tried to dress up his hate in a patriotic costume and some of the rhetoric we hear today.
It's interesting how some people try to use patriotism as a cover for intolerance. It's like they're hiding behind the American flag.
It's like a smokescreen.
Yeah.
We've all seen it. People claiming to be patriots while demonizing entire groups of people.
Yeah.
But that's not what patriotism is about.
No, not at all. Real patriotism should be about bringing people together, not dividing them. It should be about celebrating what we have in common.
Okay, so back to Greenbaum. This guy gets beaten up for standing up to hate, gets slapped with a fine.
Yeah.
And then get this, just 6 months later, Hitler invades Poland. World War II breaks out.
Oh, wow.
And what does Greenbaum do?
What does he do?
He signs up to fight, joins the U.S. Army transport.
Wow.
He'd faced down Nazis once, and he was ready to do it again. But on a much larger scale this time.
His story becomes more than just one person being brave. It's a symbol of the whole world fighting against fascism.
Yeah.
All those people who risked their lives to protect freedom.
And he wasn't content to just stay safe behind the lines. This guy was on the front lines, making 15 trips across the Atlantic.
Wow.
Even getting torpedoed at one point. Talk about dedication.
That's incredible.
There's one quote that really struck me. He said, "If we had stopped them earlier when we had the chance, there would be a lot less bloodshed in the world today."
That's powerful. It makes you think about how important it is to speak up against hate before it turns into something really terrible.
Right.
He saw what happens when people ignore it.
So the war ends, Greenbaum comes home, starts a family, eventually moves to California. He becomes known as Pops, a beloved figure in his community sharing stories about his life, including that night at Madison Square Garden.
I love that. It's great that after everything he went through, he found peace and happiness.
Yeah.
His story isn't just about fighting evil. It shows how strong the human spirit can be, the importance of community and simple things like family.
But there's another layer to this story that we need to unpack. Remember, Greenbaum's story started with him taking action.
Right.
Now, knowing what he did, knowing that this Trump rally is happening in the very same place where he stood up to the Nazis,
Yeah.
it makes you wonder, wouldn't it?
It really does make you think, would you have been as brave as Greenbaum?
Right.
Would you speak up against so much hate?
Would you risk your own safety for what you believe in?
Big questions.
These are tough questions, but they're questions we all need to ask ourselves.
Yeah.
Greenbaum's grandson, Brett Siciliano, said his grandfather often told him,
What's that?
"If you see something, you have to do something."
Wow.
Those words resonate even more powerfully today.
They do.
Yeah.
In a world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed by injustice and just give up Greenbaum's story,
Right.
reminds us that we can all make a difference.
Yeah.
Even small acts of courage can have a big impact.
Greenbaum's story isn't over. It's still unfolding right now as we deal with the same forces of hate and intolerance that he fought against all those years ago. So as we head into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want you to think about this. What will you do when faced with injustice? Will you be a bystander, or will you choose to act?
That's a good question for everyone to consider.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about Isadore Greenbaum, the man who stood up to a room full of Nazis back in 1939.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It really has. From that wild rally at Madison Square Garden
Yeah.
to his bravery during World War II and then his peaceful life after the war,
Right.
his story gives us a lot to think about.
It does.
That one act of defiance, that moment where he risked everything to speak out against hate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it echoes through his whole life.
It does.
It still speaks to us today.
What's interesting is that Greenbaum wasn't some big shot or politician.
Yeah.
He was just an ordinary working guy who felt like he had to do something.
And that's what makes it so powerful, right?
Exactly.
It shows that anyone can be brave.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from.
You don't have to be famous or powerful to be a hero.
Right. Greenbaum's story is like a challenge to all of us.
It is.
It makes us ask ourselves,
Yeah.
what would we do when faced with injustice?
That's the question, isn't it?
Would we speak up? Would we take action? Or would we just stay silent?
It's easy to stay silent sometimes.
It is. And, this isn't just about fighting Nazis.
Right.
It's about fighting all kinds of hate and prejudice.
All kinds.
It's about seeing everyone is human, no matter who they are, what they believe, or what they look like.
It's about standing up for what's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard. Even when people don't agree with you.
That's the test, isn't it?
His grandson said that Greenbaum used to tell him, if you see something, you have to do something.
Wow.
It's such a simple saying.
Yeah.
But it's so true.
It means we're not just here to watch.
Right.
We have a responsibility to act.
To speak up.
To make a difference.
To make the world a better place.
That's the goal.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Isadore Greenbaum's life,
Okay.
I want to leave you with one last thought.
All right.
What would you have done if you were in that crowd at Madison Square Garden in 1939?
And more importantly, what will you do today when you see injustice or hatred happening?
Yeah, will you be a bystander or will you step up and do something?
Greenbaum's story shows us that even small acts of courage can have a big impact.
So never underestimate your own power to make a difference.
That's a good reminder.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into history.
It's been a pleasure.
Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.
We love hearing from you.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.